Chapter 1: The So-Called Genius. In the southern part of the Shenlong continent, within the Duing province of the Star Luo Empire, there is a small town surrounded by mountains, Yinlong Town. At this time, the square of Yinlong Town was crowded with people, and a family test selection was being held. A first-level fighter, the level of concentration of fighting spirit is weak. Long Fei looked at the crystal ball with a faint yellow light in his hand, shook his head slightly, put the crystal ball back on the stone platform, turned around, and walked away. There were people standing around the square. When they saw Long Fei's test results came out, they immediately whispered to each other and started talking about it. It's no wonder who made Long Fei the son of the head of the Long family. The people who came for the test today were, without exception, all descendants of the Long clan, and this test was very important and even related to their future. Level 3 fighter, the level of concentration of fighting spirit is medium. Another kid from the Long family finished the test and walked off the stage happily, while his father was already smiling from ear to ear. One after another, the family members came on stage. Except for the earliest Long Fei, almost without exception, the ones with the lowest qualifications could reach the level 3 fighter. I see. It turns out that guy just now is a once-in-a-century waste from the Long family. No wonder. He is 10 years old and has not even reached the level of first-level fighting spirit. Geniuses are rare to see, and the same goes for this waste. But fortunately, our mayor has more than one son. Keep your voice down. The mayor doesn't want to hear anyone talking about his son. So, what if you hear it? Facts are facts. Trash is trash. Trash will never become a genius. After the test, Long Fei stood next to his father. He heard everything that was said in the audience without missing a word, but his reaction to this was nothing more than a slight smile. And his father, Long Outyen, the mayor of Yinlong Town and the current head of the Long clan, looked slightly gloomy at this time. With his cultivation level, if Long Fei could hear the words, how could he not hear them? Fair, you can see how important strength is in this world. Father, Fair, talent is very important, that's true. But if you want to become a respected and strong person, your own efforts are the most important. Don't be jealous of those talented people with good qualifications. You just need to work hard and surpass them. There is nothing impossible. Long Fei nodded. Yes. 6th level fighter, level of concentration of fighting spirit, intermediate level. At this moment, a shout came from the stage, and a young man with a face as white as jade was smiling and holding the crystal ball in his hand, waving desperately to the crowd around him. Long Yun, the youngest son of the 3rd brother's family, didn't expect that his qualifications were so good. Looking at the young man on the stage, Long Outyen was slightly startled. He turned to look at Long Fei, and his expression suddenly darkened. Compared with the 3rd brother's son, my youngest son is really ugh. In the Shenlong continent, the talent of cultivation is of paramount importance, just like Long Yun and Long Fei. They are the same age, one is at level 1, and the other is at level 6. Although this gap can be reduced through practice, if both parties work equally hard and practice the same way, then who is stronger and who is weaker in the end? The answer is obvious. Fair. Just as Long Outyen was about to comfort his son, he found Long Fei looking at Long Yun. The corners of his mouth were slightly raised. The expression on his face was definitely not jealous, but disdain. Long Outyen was stunned. The test is still going on, but there has never been anyone with more qualifications than Long Yun. At the age of 10, he can reach the 6th level fighter. Such qualifications are extremely rare. As the last Long family child completed the test, the test selection also came to an end. Wang Yun won the first place without any suspense, while Long Fei deserved the last place. Long Yun is allowed to enter Tinglong Pavilion to practice for 3 months. The second person, Long Feng, and the third person, Long Xiao, will be taught the fighting spirit techniques by the 2 elders personally. The remaining family members will disperse on their own. Remember to practice hard and bring honor to the family as soon as possible. Hearing this voice, everyone gathered in groups and dispersed. Of course, discussion was inevitable, and the last place and the first place inevitably became their current topic. Listening to the discussions around him, Long Fei just smiled slightly, said goodbye to his father, and returned to his room alone. Laugh as much as you like. There were many people who laughed at me in my last life. But what was the result? By the end, they couldn't laugh anymore. After locking the door, Long Fei sat by the bed, rolled up his sleeves, and frowned at the cauldron tattoo on his left wrist. The cauldron-shaped tattoo is only the size of a watch. It is located a little above Long Fei's wrist and can be seen as long as he rolls up his sleeves. And this tattoo that looks like a cauldron is related to a secret that only Long Fei himself knows. In a word, Long Fei came to this different world from another world. In his last life, he was a mercenary. When he captured the ancient cultural relic Bagua Furnace, he fought with the enemy. In that battle, all his teammates died, and he was the only one left in the end. There were at least 100 enemies coming from all directions. There was no way out, and he could no longer escape. He would rather die than let the other party have an easy time. This was his only thought at the time. Then, when all the enemies were approaching, he detonated the bomb in his hand. After losing consciousness, he seemed to have been sleeping for centuries. When he woke up, he realized that he had arrived in another world, a completely different world from the previous life. Here, there are no guns, cannons, planes, and rockets. The people here have another kind of power. There is no magic, only various kinds of fighting spirit, which is a kind of power that is completely superior to ordinary people. Wang Fei has estimated that in terms of combat effectiveness, even if he is given a personal rocket launcher and a third-level fighting master, he may not have any chance of winning. The body turned into a baby. In addition to retaining the memory of the previous life, the tripod-shaped birthmark on his wrist was also a proof of his identity through time. In appearance, this tripod-shaped birthmark is exactly the same as the Bagua Furnace he snatched. The difference is that the Bagua Furnace is real, while this furnace is just a birthmark. To Long Fei's parents in this life, having a cauldron-shaped birthmark on their son was just a little bit special and not a big deal at all, but to him, that was not what they thought. Even though so long had passed, he still remembered clearly when he held the Bagua stove and detonated the bomb. After a loud noise, he lost consciousness, but he suddenly felt that there seemed to be a strong suction force sucking him into something. Could the source of that suction be the Bagua Furnace? Why is the birthmark on my body not in the shape of a sword or a rhombus, but in the shape of a trigram? The most important thing is that the shape of this Bagua Furnace is exactly the same as the Bagua Furnace in memory. Are these all coincidences? Long Fei never believed this was a coincidence because he knew a little bit about the origin of the Bagua Furnace. The full name of the Bagua Furnace should be called Tai Chi Bagua Furnace. This thing is the treasure of heaven and earth passed down by Taishang Laojun. The most famous record about this furnace is that Taishang Laojun used this furnace to refine Monkey King. Yes, this cauldron is the one used to refine Sun Wukong. Regarding the above, Long Fei had always listened to them as legends. After all, neither Sun Ho nor Taishang Laojun had seen it. It was written like that in Journey to the West, but in reality, no one could see it. Long Fei didn't believe in legends before, but now he does. After all, such bizarre things as time travel can happen, so the records of the Bagua furnace are true, so there is nothing to be surprised about. Now that I have said it, why did I travel through time after my death? And can you still retain the memory of your previous life? Are you special than others? No, I am just an ordinary person. If I want to say what is different from others, I can only think of the Bagua furnace that exploded into a ball with my own flesh and blood. Ever since he was young, Long Fei had been thinking about how to get rid of the Bagua stove, but no matter how he tried, roasting, steaming, or even digging with a blade, there was no effect except making blood dripping. In the end, they all failed. This phenomenon lasted until he started to practice Do Qi when he was 5 years old. When he tried to guide the meager Do Qi in his body to the Bagua furnace, he did not expect that this unintentional move caused the Bagua furnace to suddenly tremble a little. This small tremor gave him an itchy feeling, as if the Bagua furnace would fall off his wrist if he applied more force. This discovery made him ecstatic, and from that time on, he had been relentlessly feeding fighting energy into the Bagua furnace, exhausting himself every time. Counting the time, 5 years had passed unknowingly. For 5 years, he has been known as the family's waste, just to do such a thing that I don't know whether it is good or bad. Sometimes when Long Fei thinks about it, he feels a little stupid. No matter what, even if the final result is futile, I will still do it. If I don't unlock the secret of the Bagua furnace, how can I feel at ease? Long Fei took a deep breath and condensed his fighting energy into the palm of his right hand. The pale yellow and insubstantial fighting energy boiled from his palm, and then he pressed it on the Bagua tattoo. If Long Outyen were present at this time, he would be shocked by Long Fei's strength and the concentration of fighting energy in his palms. If the fighting energy condenses the subordinates, it will never be possible. The only thing that can be achieved is the fighting energy condenses and the superiors are strong. Not only the density of his fighting spirit, but also the amount of his fighting spirit is also quite outstanding. Even compared with the first place in the test, Long Yun, it is not inferior to him, far beyond him. Obviously, Long Fei did not show his true strength in today's test, and he hid his clumsiness. In his previous life, he was not very educated, but his teacher once taught him a sentence, which he always remembered. People are afraid of being famous, and pigs are afraid of being strong. Guys who like to be in the limelight often die the fastest. With the continuous input of luck-enhancing fighting energy into the Bagua furnace tattoo, he felt that the tingling sensation coming from the Bagua furnace intensified violently. Just keep working harder. Long Fei shouted loudly. The fighting energy in his palms surged, and he poured it all into it. Qi dash. Moving his palm away, the Bagua furnace tattoo fell off his wrist and fell on the bed. Chapter 2 Bagua Furnace. Huang Qingqing's appearance showed that the Bagua stove at this time was only the size of a teapot. Although the overall appearance was the same as Long Fei's memory of his previous life, upon closer inspection, he found that not only had the size become much smaller, but even the surface of the Bagua stove had undergone some changes. The Bagua furnace of past life memories was half a person tall and extremely heavy. At that time, Long Fei could only hold it while walking. Of course, if it were not for the Bagua furnace being too heavy, he would not have been surrounded by his enemies. The size is dozens of times smaller and the weight is dozens of times lighter, but the biggest change is the Bagua pattern on the Bagua furnace, which is now completely different. It turns out that the 8 trigrams directions are engraved on the Bagua stove: sky, water, mountain, earthquake, wind, fire, earth, and lake. But now it has become 4 engraved characters on 4 sides: earth, fire, water, wind. Compared with before, there are 4 less hexagrams. What's going on? Did the Bagua furnace also mutate during time travel? Long Fei took the Bagua stove in his hand and shook it, but he didn't expect that his action caused the Bagua stove to react. It suddenly made a loud chirping sound, and white smoke began to emit from the mouth of the furnace. It made a continuous sound. Crack. Just when Long Fei was secretly shocked, something flew out from the mouth of the Bagua furnace and fell right into his hand. The surface of the object shone with golden light, and the aroma was fragrant. It was about the size of a pigeon egg, and it turned out to be a golden elixir. Here, how come there is a golden elixir here? Bang, clang, 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 clang. Just when Long Fei was shocked, the small Bagua furnace in his hand vibrated again. After a while, white smoke came out, and a silver pill flew out from the mouth of the furnace and landed firmly in his hand. At this point, all the strange phenomena of the Bagua furnace stopped, and the layer of yellow light on the surface of the Bagua furnace suddenly dimmed. 1 gold, 1 silver, 2 elixirs? The golden elixir of the creation of heaven and earth, if taken by ordinary people, can reshape one's body, cut down the marrow of the I Ching, and increase one's lifespan for hundreds of years. If taken by an immortal, it can also increase the Taoist conduct for dozens of years. The tiger swallows the silver cloud pill. After taking it, it can stimulate the human body's potential and increase its strength tenfold in a short period of time. There are no side effects. The effect lasts for 3 hours. If you take it again, it will take 2 days. A rigid voice suddenly came from Long Fei's mind. It sounded like an electronically synthesized voice, cold and emotionless. Long Fei was completely stunned. In the Long family's martial arts training ground, in front of a giant statue that was more than 10 meters high, more than 20 Long family disciples were punching and kicking. They have to do this kind of exercise every day, and only by working hard to practice fighting spirit can they stand out in the family and become a strong person that everyone respects. Yan Chen frowned and glanced at the Long family disciples who were practicing. When he saw that Long Fei was not among the crowd, he couldn't help but sigh slightly. Yan Chen is 40 years old this year. He is the captain of the guard team in Yinlong Town. In addition to being responsible for the security of the town, he is also responsible for teaching the disciples of the Long family to practice. It's been 3 days, and the young master hasn't come to training yet. Hey, it seems that the talent test has dealt a big blow to him. Yan Chen shook his head helplessly and yelled at the Long family disciples, "Pull yourself together and punch with all your strength." Hi. Upon hearing Yan Chen's order, the Long family's disciples punched in unison, their aura immediately showing. Concentrate, relax your body, control the fighting spirit in your body to follow your movements, punch, and the fighting spirit will follow closely, shrink your fist, and the fighting spirit will begin to gather. The disciples of the Long family were sweating profusely and roared one after another as they punched. Uncle Yan, tell us another story about the ancestors of the Long family. During the lunch break, more than 20 children sat around the giant statue and looked at Yan Chen expectantly. For these children, in addition to practicing hard every day, their biggest hobby was listening to Yan Chen tell stories about the ancestors of the Long family. Heroes make people admire them, and strong people make people respect them. Listening to the stories of heroes every day can make them practice harder. Looking at the statue of the ancestor of the Long family, Yan Chen looked in reverence and slowly said, "Do you know how many types of fighting spirit there are?" "I know." A dark and thin child stood up with his hands raised. "His name is Long Yan. Although he is only a collateral descendant of the Long family, his fighting spirit is very good. He has reached the 4th level fighter at the age of 9. Do Qi is divided into 4 tributes, namely earth, water, fire, and wind. Yan Chen nodded, motioned Long Yan to sit down, and said, Long Yan is right. There are indeed 4 types of fighting Qi. However, from the 4 basic attributes of fighting Qi, various fighting Qi with different powers and different attributes can also be derived, such as Yan Chen clenched his fist suddenly, and a wave of pale golden fighting spirit immediately wrapped around his fist. The pale golden fighting spirit rolled up and down with an astonishing momentum. The basic attribute of my fighting spirit is the earth attribute, and the attributes I derived from the earth attribute are metallic. Metallic fighting spirit has strong destructive power and strong defensive power. It is suitable for head-on confrontation with the enemy. If I practice it to the extreme, I can penetrate all steel. Yan Chen raised his eyes and looked around, looking for his target. Soon, he found his target, the blue boulder steps next to the martial arts training ground. Yan Chen walked to the steps of the blue boulder, shouted loudly, and struck the blue boulder with his fist shining with golden fighting spirit. Boom! After a slightly dull sound, Yan Chen withdrew his fist and looked at the blue boulder. He saw that a deep circular hole had been punched out by his fist, with a depth of up to 1 foot. Wow! The children all opened their mouths and looked at Yan Chen with even more admiration. It still doesn't work. Yan Chen looked at the crack marks around the deep cave, shook his head and said, There are cracks on the blue stone. My cultivation is still not enough. Metallic Do Qi is so powerful, Uncle Yan. Can I also practice metal Do Qi in the future? Looking at Yan Chen, Long Yan's eyes were full of admiration. Ha ha ha, maybe this can be done, maybe not. Yan Chen laughed loudly, walked up to the children and said, I wanted to see my metallic fighting spirit just to let you know that although there are only 4 basic attributes of fighting spirit, from these 4 basic attributes, various kinds of fighting spirit can be infinitely reproduced, and golden fighting spirit is just one of them. Yan Chen pointed at the statue of the ancestor of the Long family and said, The ancestor of your Long family, Long Lai, is titled Do Sage. The fighting spirit he uses is extremely special. It is the extremely rare dragon fighting spirit. Dragon Do Qi. The children's eyes lit up. Yan Chen nodded solemnly and said in a deep voice, According to records, when Long Lai, the ancestor of the Long family, was 75 years old, he used dragon fighting spirit to kill 2 8th level monsters, the Red Flame Flying Dragon, in one fell swoop. After that battle, he received the title of Fighting Saint. The children all became quiet. Although they had never seen the 8th level monster, the Red Flame Flying Dragon, in the dragon family, the second elder raised a 6th level monster, the Blue Water Golden Eyes Beast. They had seen the power of that beast with their own eyes. 3 years ago, the Blue Water Golden-Eyed Beast got angry once. The beast was a water monster that controlled the lake to make waves. If the second elder hadn't come back in time, the consequences would have been disastrous. The 6th level monsters are so terrifying, but what about the 8th level monsters? Dragon Do Qi is extremely rare, and its power far exceeds that of other Do Qi of the same level. Only a very small number of special Do Qi can compete with it. Back then, your ancestor Lin Lai relied on Dragon Do Qi to dominate the world, and no one could defeat him. Even if the emperor saw him, he would treat him with courtesy and not dare to show any slights. Yan Chen's words made the children of the Long family excited. What an honor it was to be on equal footing with the emperor and look down upon the world. Who wouldn't want to be that kind of person, admired by the world? You all have the blood of the titled fighting Saint Long Lai flowing in your body, so each of you has the possibility of cultivating dragon fighting chi. Children, I very much look forward to the fact that some of you can cultivate dragon fighting chi. Yes, the family surnamed Long has not had a dragon fighting spirit for 300 years. Although the family's residual power is still there, if it continues like this, the decline of the family is almost foreseeable. Hearing Yen Chen's words, the children jumped up from the ground and screamed, ran to the martial arts training ground, and started arduous training again. Yen Chen smiled slightly and was about to step forward to teach. When he looked up, he saw two servants carrying a large wooden bucket not far away, passing by sweating profusely. Two servants came out of Long Fei's residence, carrying large wooden barrels filled with black sewage. Yen Chen felt strange, so he stepped forward and asked, "What are you carrying?" Yen Tu, "This is the young master's bathwater." The two servants replied and walked away carrying the big wooden barrel. Bathwater? How many days does it take to get this dirty without taking a bath? Yen Chen was stunned. In the room, Long Fei soaked his entire body in a large wooden bucket filled with warm water with a look of enjoyment on his face, leaving only his head exposed. For 3 days, he has never left the house. It's not that he doesn't want to go out, but that after he took the golden pill of creation of heaven and earth, some black impurities would leak out from the surface of his skin from time to time, covering his whole body, making it impossible for him to go out. Long Fei knew that this was the effect of rebirth and the cutting of the marrow of the I Ching, because since the first batch of black impurities leaked out of his body, he felt that his mind was clear, his ears and eyesight were sharp, his hearing and eyesight were greatly enhanced, and even the speed of running Dou Qi was more than twice as fast as before. The golden elixir of the creation of heaven and earth is indeed very effective and worthy of the words, creation of heaven and earth. The transformation was not over yet, and black impurities seeped out from time to time. He had no choice but to soak in the water to let all the impurities escape from the body. I looked down and saw that the water in the barrel was crystal clear and no black impurities could be seen on the surface of my body. Well, all the impurities in my body should have been expelled. Long Fei took a deep breath, and the light yellow fighting energy immediately appeared on the surface of his lower abdomen. As he breathed and breathed, the fighting energy began to slowly swim toward the limbs of his body. Cultivating Dou Qi requires not only increasing the quantity and quality of Dou Qi in the body, but also controlling Dou Qi and refining the body. Only by gradually increasing the endurance of the body can it be possible to accommodate more Dou Qi. The amount of Dou Qi and the endurance of the body are in a mutually reinforcing relationship. The light yellow Dou Qi moves very slowly on the surface of the body. Every time it moves a little, the amount of Dou Qi will disappear a little. The light yellow Dou Qi has completely disappeared before it has spread all over the body. Phew, finally done. After exercising his body for a while, Long Fei felt refreshed and indescribably comfortable. He checked his body again and found that no stains were discharged. Then he stretched out, jumped out of the big wooden barrel, ran to the bed in 3 steps, reached into the quilt, and grabbed the small Bagua stove. There are actually leftover golden elixirs refined by gods in this cauldron. Does that mean that I can also use it to refine golden elixirs? Just let me try it. Chapter 3, The Beast with Blue Water and Golden Eyes. Long Fei clicked the Bagua furnace on his wrist, and the Bagua furnace turned back into a tattoo and stuck to his body. During the 3 days he stayed in the room, Long Fei had already experimented with the Bagua furnace. He found that not only could he freely control the Bagua furnace to possess and separate from his body, but he could also control the size of the cauldron furnace to become larger or smaller. All he needs to do is keep pumping Do Qi into the cauldron. However, with long phase current Do Qi cultivation, the volume of the cauldron can increase to the size of 2 teapots at most. If it increases upwards, the Do Qi cannot be sustained, and there is nothing he can do. According to legend, this cauldron is so large that it can fit even Sun Monkey in it. How can it be smaller? But now it doesn't even have the volume of a pot. It seems that if you want to completely understand the secret of the cauldron, you have to practice your fighting spirit more intensively. Although the size of the Bagua furnace makes Long Fei helpless, what he wants to know most now is whether the furnace can be used by him. After all, the legendary golden elixir is too tempting for him. What is needed to refine the elixir is, of course, materials. It is difficult for a clever woman to make a meal without rice. Long Fei does not believe that he can shake out the golden elixir. If you think about it, you can understand that the 2 elixirs shaken out must have been left by the previous owner of the cauldron. Otherwise, there are no materials inside. How could the golden elixir be shaken out of thin air? Yinlong Town has a population of only a few 100,000, and there is no medicinal materials store. There are only 2 ways to get medicinal materials. One is to go to the nearest Feiyin city to buy them, and the other is to go to the second elder of the family. It takes a day to go to Feiyin city and 2 days to go back and forth. Of course, these are nothing. The most important thing is that Long Yun is still a child. At the age of 10, even if money is excluded, does he have that kind of freedom? No. So he could only go to the second elder of the family. In the Long family, the head of the family does not have the greatest power. The 2 elders in the family have the greatest power. They are the elders of Long Yun. The head of the family is responsible for managing external affairs, but they manage the internal affairs of the family. The great elder's strength has reached the 1st level of Dozong, and he is very famous. He has always been the pillar of the Long family, but now that he is older, he is rarely seen in public except when major events happen in the clan. Although the second elder's strength is far inferior to that of the first elder, his profession is that of an extremely rare alchemist. On the Shenlong continent, there are probably a dozen or 20 people who can use Do Qi among tens of thousands of people, but among the tens of thousands of people who can use Do Qi, there is not necessarily a single alchemist. Alchemists are quite rare and precious. The medicines they make are needed by everyone, and medicines that can increase fighting energy and change the body are the things that fighters dream of. Just imagine you have been practicing hard for 3 years, but in the end, someone just took one medicine.